Hello traders, Rich here and welcome to a new episode on how to analyze any chart from scratch without using any indicators, just by applying basic price action concepts and market structure 101. So let's get started, and as usual, cheers. Today we have episode number 15, which is Palladium, a commodity. If you're not familiar with the series, I'll make sure to attach the entire playlist, which includes all the videos by order, in the description below. So enjoy it. And let's get started with this example. For those who already know, we always start from the higher time frames, weekly and daily time frames, to know where we stand in the market. Are we overall bullish, bearish, or stuck inside a range? Of course, we'll be looking for buy setups around the lower bound or the support. It can be horizontal, just like this one, or non-horizontal, just like these two, 1 and 2. And of course, vice versa, we'll be looking for sell setups around the upper bound or around the resistance area. It can also be horizontal or non-horizontal. So we want to know if the price is approaching a rejection area. Our rejections can be a support or resistance, a supply or demand, and trend lines, which are non-horizontal supply and resistance. But sometimes, like especially now for stocks and crypto, and for this particular one, which is Palladium, we can't really find typical supply and resistance as the price is trading higher and higher. So we can't really see many failed attempts to break below or above a certain level, right? That's why we always go for round numbers, supply and demand zones, and trend lines as mentioned before. So in this particular case, we can't really see much. We can't really add one resistance. As you can see, only one failed attempt. We need at least 3, and we need big swings. So for example, this is only one. Anyway, it's not valid. This is only one, not valid, and so on. So for example, I guess we had one previously. Yes, this is it. So I've got here many failed attempts to break above this area or below, of course. So resistance, broke it upward, support. So now this is a typical support and resistance. However, since then the price was trading higher in an aggressive manner. That's why we can't really find typical supply and resistance. That's why let's go for round numbers. And it's different for every specific instrument, because like for forex pairs, they would be trading inside like 0 and 1 or 2. The round numbers would be 0.5, 0.75, 1, and so on, right? While for like Bitcoin, it's trading between, of course, 0 and 60, 70K. So the round numbers would be 10, 20K, 30K, and so on. Right? So it depends on the instrument. In this particular case, for Palladium, it's trading between like 400, or of course, if you zoom out, you can see the 0 here, but it's trading between, for now, if you zoom in, between 400 and 3K. So the strongest round numbers are what? Of course, 1, 2, 3K. And the minor ones, or the less with less impact, are the 1.5K, 2.5K, and so on. So let's start by drawing it, and let's see if it makes sense or not. So the 500 is right here, and as you can see, it makes quite good sense. At the price is rejected it here. Then we've got what? The 1K. I'll keep them all in green just to make this like example faster. 1K, let's see. Yes, the price, of course, it's an entire zone and not a laser level. So if we make it a little bit lower, we can connect the swings that we showed previously, but let's keep it as a 1K for now. Anyway, it's like far away from the price, but let's go over it one by one to be like a practical example. Then we've got the 1.5K, and as you can see, we also have many rejections from it. It was acting as a resistance previously, resistance, and then price broke upward, so it's now acting as a support area. So this is actually also a typical support and resistance area, of course, if you make it a little bit higher. So it's an entire zone, just like support and resistance, but it's like we'll show you where we might have some rejections. So then we've got the 2K, and let's do it real quick. 2.5 and 3K. 3K, I guess it's around the all-time high. Yes, that's it. So the 3K, as you can see, the price rejected it to the point, and 2.5K, which is like in the middle between 2 and 3. So that's it for our round numbers. Now, next step, let's go for supply and demand zones. Well, I can't really see quite strong supply and demand zones. We had previously a demand zone here, an aggressive movement upward, but it got filled. As you can see, the price retested and traded higher. So it's no longer like acting as a strong one. It's no longer fresh, which means that it's not now getting weaker, and you don't want weak supply and demand zone, right? We need the strongest fresh ones. As I always say, supply and demand zones are originated from one fresh untouched point. If it's not fresh anymore, or if it's like touched or filled, whatever you want to call it, right? It's now getting weaker and weaker. So always highlight the fresh ones. And anyway, you know what? Anyway, we've got a rejection here, which is this support and resistance and the 1.5K. So anyway, we'll keep this level, but it's not a demand zone. Right, so next we've got a minor one here, a supply zone. As you can see, it is, if you like watched my previous videos on YouTube, if you would like to know more about it, we have two videos about, one for the basics on what is a supply and what is a demand. We've got 4 types. So we have a drop, base, and then rally, and we have a drop, base, and then drop again. Okay, so this is a demand zone. Obviously, this is a supply zone, and vice versa. Of course, we have a rally, drop, and then base and then drop, or rally, base, and then rally. So this is obviously a supply zone as price made an aggressive movement down from it, and this is a demand zone as price made an aggressive movement upwards from it. Anyway, you can watch the previous video that I have made on my YouTube channel, and I made also another one which includes a strategy on how to look for setups around supply and demand. So this is actually what a drop, base, and then a drop again. So it's still fresh, but I will not draw it because it's like already the 2.5K. So I'll keep it there. Of course, it's an entire zone. This is our 2.5K zone, right? So I will not draw a supply also, because I want to make my chart as clean as possible. And if you check it out, that price also respected it many times. Of course, not like the 1.5K, right? But still, the price is respecting this area. And keep in mind that this is from weekly. So maybe there's like small movement, or the small movement from weekly is a big or an entire trend from lower time frames. Anyway, let's follow our rules. Let's focus on our rejection areas for now. Later on, of course, we'll zoom into lower time frames. So this is it. I will not draw this one. I will not draw this one. So that's it for supply and demand. Now, last but not least, we've got trend lines, right? So you know that Palladium is overall bullish, but we need to know, or we need to like draw trend lines to cover the entire movement, or what I call to engulf the entire movement. We need our what I call also the outer trend lines, right? So the upper bound and the lower bound. Lower bound is like considered to be a non-horizontal support or oversold area, and the upper bound is considered to be an overbought area. So we expect the price to reject it. Of course, we expect it to reject it. We don't sell blindly. We always look for sell setups on lower time frames for extra confirmation. So now let's try to find like the trend lines that engulfs the overall movement. I can see a very, very obvious one, but you can take a moment to check it out to see if you can also see it. I'm trying to my best to make it as interactive as possible, but since it's not live, like you can't, like I wish you can, but hopefully like next time when I go live again on YouTube, then we can interact more. So take a moment, I'll take a sip, and let's do it. Fantastic. You are correct. We've got 2 non-horizontal support. We have like one which is quite old now, but let's keep it anyway. We've got this one. Let's make this one in blue. Okay, fantastic. And as you can see, it's like lining up with the zone, which is the 1.5. And of course, it's an entire zone like this, right? So as price approaches it, the 1.5 now is even stronger as it's the intersection, as it's intersecting with this trend line. The second one, which is following the price action more, is what? If you zoom in a little bit, you can clearly see it, I guess, which is this one, right? So try to connect the lowest points, and we need the lowest points to have big impact on the price, right? So this is also a very, very strong one. And let's make this one in brown. I always like to make the trend lines in brown, but since I was planning to make this one in brown, I made this one in blue. And of course, we always try to make an offset for it for us to know where is the upper bound. Now you can draw it like this. You can like also make it a little bit higher, make it a little bit lower here, right? So in this case, it would engulf the movement more, but it doesn't really matter as it's an entire zone and not a laser level, right? So we'll be looking for sell setups around it. We will not sell blindly. This is the key. Okay, just like support and resistance, just like horizontal ones, trend lines are also zones on our charts, especially from higher time frames, because we just draw it to show us the overall movement. So now from these trend lines, you know that we are now overall bullish. We had this impulse, correction, impulse, and we are currently in the correction phase, approaching the lower bound or the non-horizontal support. That's why we'll be looking for buy setups to catch the next impulse movement. Okay, so just from weekly time frame, as you can clearly see and notice, look how like much info we gathered. We had a blank chart like this, and look now how like more like clearer, if you want to say, the chart is. Now we know where we are in the market. We are around a support area. We'll be looking for buy setups to catch the next impulse. Our next possible rejection would be the 2.5K, which is a round number, 1. 2, it's also a supply zone, and it's like also a trend following supply zone, which makes the supply zone even stronger. First, of course, if price breaks below it, then this area would become a resistance, and we'll be looking for sell setups on its retest. Of course, we need a break, a big candle, or multiple full bearish candles. Anyway, we need to see a break. No matter how it happens, we need to see a clear movement. So that if we have like a big zone, the big zone is also broken. Okay, so we want the entire resistance, no matter how you draw it. That's why I always say, no matter how you draw it, as long as you know that we've got a resistance here. Okay, in this case, it would be broken. We're looking for sound the retest, and our next support would be obviously this area here. So long story short, what I will do is highlight it as this and on the weekly time frame. Then I'll make copy paste or press Control, right? I'm not actually copy paste, Control, and then I drag and drop it, Control, drag and drop it, right? So this is how we do it in a faster manner. Anyway, I'm sorry if I'm like a little bit like fast. So sometimes I should make it a bit slower, but just like because I spend so much time on the charts, the more time you spend, the more like tricks you will find, and the faster you will get. So this is basically it. We'll be looking for buy setups now. So let's zoom into daily time frame. And sometimes when like you can find so much like info or so much levels or so many levels, right? I guess it's so many and not so much. Then you can't really find much on daily time frame because you already like gathered so many info, so much info. Anyway, I'm not doing an English class here. So let's make this one appear on daily time frame. This one as well. And yes, perfect. And I guess it's on H4. Fantastic. Okay, so now if we zoom into daily time, let's see if we can add anything new. This one, which is quite a very strong one, right? Which we saw previously on weekly time frame, many rejections from it. So it's good that we draw it. Anyway, we have it's like 2.5K. Next, let's see if we can add anything. Only one rejection here, only one rejection here. Let's make it in orange. Right, so that we can know that it's from daily time frame. If you trade low, if you go lower, only one rejection. Nice. We've got a good one here, which you can see many rejections from it here, and recently price broke it downward, retested, so it's now acting as a resistance area. Right, so this is actually a good one, connecting at least 3 swings. Of course, it's an entire zone like this. Let me show you. So this is it, right? So we've got rejections here also, here and here as well. So it's an entire zone from around 2.2K, I guess. Let me fix it to 2. And this one, which is 225, I guess. Anyway, let's make it 225. here we go. So now we have a resistance area, which makes like the picture even clearer. The price is currently trading inside, if you want to call it a floor. So here's our floor and here's our ceiling. Okay, so this is it. I guess this is the only thing that we can draw from daily time frame. We already drew this one, which is an entire zone, and we already drew the previous trend lines. And yes, this is it. So now let's zoom in a little bit, like to monitor the price action. We can clearly see that we are overall bearish, right? So we had this impulse correction, a bigger impulse. The price failed to break above the previous high. So now traded higher, and then a new bearish trend has started, right? So lower lows and lower highs. We can see that, and we can see it better from H4 time frame when we zoom in. We'll zoom in a bit. That we also had this low, that price broke upward, then rejected this resistance here. Okay, so we are bearish. However, the bulls are trying to take over from a short-term perspective. So now we are technically bullish and around this retesting this support area. That's why we are looking for buy setups on lower time frames to catch the next impulse of what? Of this minor bullish trend. So price broke above this high. So now this is our impulse. We are currently in the correction phase. We're expecting the next impulse to push the price higher. Okay, that's how you start from the zoomed out picture to the zoomed in picture. Then you can find where you are in the market. Then you can zoom into lower time frames for your triggers. Okay, and we'll zoom in just in a bit to H4 time frame. So this is what we know so far. We'll be looking for buy here, and price can still dive in before trading higher. We already know that it's an entire zone, and we also have our lower brown trend line, and this is actually also a demand zone, as we had an aggressive movement upward. So this is actually a very, very strong zone, as we've got the intersection of the lower brown trend line and the demand zone. So that's why we'll be looking for buy setups. And as price approaches the 2.5K, we'll be looking for short-term sell setups. Unless it's broken upward, then the buyers would prove that they are in full control, as we had this impulse correction, and we also had a higher high, which means that the bullish trend is now confirmed, and which also would mean a break above the previous resistance. In this case, impulse correction, impulse breaking above the previous resistance, it becomes support. This is actually a very strong area, or very would be a high probability setup to look for buy stops, as it would be a trend following one. And we can also, maybe when this happens, of course we can't do it now, but let's say this happens, then we can draw a non-horizontal support here and offset for it, right? And then on the 3 test, we can look for buy stops. It would be a trend following and around a support area. Anyway, let's take it step by step, right? And so now, long story short, we'll be looking for buy setups. For the buyers to take full control, they need to break above this high, which also would mean a break above this resistance. Then we'll be looking for buy setups. And meanwhile, the sellers can still kick in, break below this low. In this case, they would make a lower low, just like before, lower low, lower low, lower low. If it makes a new lower low, then the bearish trend would resume. In this case, on a 3 test, because now this one will be confirmed to become a resistance. It's now acting as a support, and the brown trend line is holding the price up. If it breaks lower, then nothing will be holding the price up until this area. So in this case, if price breaks below this low, it would become, this area would become a resistance, and we'll be looking for trend following sell setups on lower time frames on the this retest. And as price approaches the support, we'll be looking for buy setups. Anyway, let's keep it step by step. I always like to give you as many details as possible, as we might not do the next analysis for Palladium for a very long period of time. So now you know what to do. If you have a break above it, we'll be looking for one retest. If you have a break below it, we'll be looking for sell retest. We'll be looking for buy here. We'll be looking for sell here. If broken upward, we're looking for buy. Around the upper bound, which is from the higher time frame, we'll be looking for sell. So that's how you plan your chart, half of the work is done on the higher time frames, weekly and daily. Now we know where we are in the market, we are around a support, and of course, when the price moves and break a floor or a support or a resistance, you know how to adjust because you already have your analysis, right? You have your levels. So long story short, let's zoom into our time frames to look for what? To look for buy setups. So that's the bearish trend. Now it's clearer from H4 time frame, this big impulse movement that we saw here. We can see that it's a whole trend from H4 time frame. The price was trading lower, making lower highs and lower lows, then lower highs and lower lows, right? Then the price failed to make a lower low, instead made an equal low, right? Which gives us an early alert that the buyers might be taking over anytime soon. And we have this break, above this high from a short-term perspective, and we have a break above this high from a medium-term perspective. So the buyers are in control from a short-term already done, and from a medium-term perspective, which we saw from daily time frame. Now price is retesting, which is quiet, as mentioned before, inside this impulse, inside this correction for now. So now we're expecting the next impulse, but we don't want to buy blindly. Even though we're under support, even though we are overall bullish from a medium-term perspective, we want the buyers to prove to us that they are taking over again before buying. In this case, for example, by the break above this high here after this candle. In this case, as you can see, lower highs and lower lows, and you can see it even better from H1, but I don't need to zoom into H1 because I already found like it makes sense from H4, so I don't need more info. That's how you do it. If you find anything on a higher time frame, don't ever zoom into lower time frames, right? The higher, the better. But of course, if you can't really find anything on H4, then you might zoom into H1 and so on. But H4 looks good. We have a trend line that we can draw, which is this one. Let's make it in red, as I always like to make my trigger trend lines in red. I don't want to see it on higher time frames. I want to see it on H4. And let's try to make an offset for it. Here we go. We've got like a channel. However, it makes more sense, or it would be stronger if we make it a little bit higher, right? As it would connect more swings. In this case, let's make it lower. Here we go, right? We've got 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, forming like a wedge pattern, which is stronger than only like 2 points, right? So this is how you make sense of the chart. We've got a wedge pattern forming, which is a strong bullish reversal pattern in this particular case because it's a falling one. So we have a support. Let me take a break. Cheers. We have a support, price broke above it, so the buyers are taking over. We are in a correction phase. We are looking for the next impulse. We have this wedge pattern. We are waiting for the buyers to take over by breaking where? Above the previous high, which is for now around this area. Let me make it in gray as usual for the trigger. If price breaks, just like same logic as here, price broke lower highs, and here's our last lower high. When spoken upward, we know that the buyers are now taking over, of course, for a potential reversal. The same logic can be applied here, waiting for price to break above this high. And of course, if price kept moving lower and this high becomes full or bigger, then we can adjust. This now would be our last high. But for now, as per the current market conditions, the last high is clearly here, right? We can see it clearly, right? I don't have to like introduce you to highs and lows. So, and if price like kept moving lower from here, this one would become like the last high, which is even better, providing us with a better risk to reward ratio, because this is our next resistance here. In this case, it would be even better while entering at a better rate, and our enterprise is even more overextended, as the more it goes lower, the higher the probability setup would be, as it would be approaching the support more. Okay, so this is quite it for Palladium. Of course, when the buy is activated, we can't really know if it would be here or here, but now since we have it, I'm not changing it. So this would be the stop loss below the last swing low, right? Which would be, we can't really know where, but let's say it's here, just as my drawing. And we target a 2-to-1 reward ratio, which would be around the upper resistance area. And of course, as price approaches this area, we will be looking for sell setups unless it's broken upward. Then, as mentioned previously, from daily time frame, the momentum would be shifted entirely. The buyers would take over from a long-term perspective, not only from a short-term perspective or medium-term perspective, and we'll be looking for buy setups on the retest. Meanwhile, and until price breaks for now above this high or this new high, Palladium would be overall bearish, and if it breaks below this one from a daily time frame, then the momentum or the bearish trend would resume, and we'll be looking for sell on the retest. That's it for Palladium. Feel free to request the instrument for episode number 16 in the comment section below, and I'll see you on the next one.